Hey, Rex Bear, Leak Project. How the heck are you? So beautiful out here today in Southern Colorado. I hope you're doing fantastic. And we have a lot of stories. I've got like 57 articles that I've tagged today with some very important information that you might or might not have heard about. We've got the latest images from several observatories and independent astronomers looking at 3i Atlas, as well as breaking news of mystery drones from around the world, tensions, Russia, Ukraine, Japan, Taiwan, China, Venezuela. The list goes on. So much to share with you. So thank you very much for being here with me. I hope you're doing fantastic. And let's just jump right in. So the first image that I pulled up today from 3i Atlas, is from the Hubble telescope. Hubble has re-observed 3i Atlas, as you can see right here, and it's pretty good. You know, I mean, the image is okay. It's not fantastic. You would think with the tens of millions of dollars of technology and, you know, telescopes, and we would have something a little bit better than this, but that's where independent astronomers come in and independent observers. We're going to look at it. We've got some very bizarre action with 3i Atlas also. So this is from JUICE. This is the JUICE navigation camera showing 3i Atlas. You can see the coma right here, what they refer to as tells and anti-tells. This is another image right here that I think is fantastic. This is at all-day astronomy. It's got two tells, and the nucleus is very visible. So check this out. You see the tells and then the what would be referred to as the anti-tell. Very beautiful blue coma. This is from the Brazilian observatory. Let's pull this up right here. This is the Brazilian observatory space tracker, space source, Diego San Araújo. This is the raw clip. I said that wrong, I know. It's amazing how people continue to debate over whether this is artificial or just an incredibly bizarre metallic comet traveling through interstellar space. I mean, either way, it could be either way. There's so much information, but we're going to look at this one also. So this is from a remote operation in Utah. This was taken on the 1st of December, and you can see also that it appears to have like a tell and an anti-tell, just very different. Now, it's an interstellar comet. You know, it's from interstellar space, so we don't really have a lot to compare it to, but it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating, and I'm going to get into this more in a moment. But before I do, I would like to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Noble Gold Investments. I don't know if you've been keeping track of gold and silver and precious metals, but they are doing phenomenal right now. And a lot of people smarter than myself are seeing even bigger gains in 2026. There's forecasts that gold could hit $5,000. There's forecasts of silver going up substantially. So you may want to look into gold and silver. And if you do decide to look into gold and silver, check out Noble Gold Investments. Their number is 877-646-5347. If you let them know Rex from Leak Project sent you and you convert your 401 or your IRA into precious metals, they will gift you, just to get started, 10 ounces of solid silver. You'll get 10 of these coins. Yeah, that's not very, let me see if I can, there we go. That's real shit. It's real shiny. This is 1 ounce. This is a Season's Greetings solid silver coin. You'll get 10 of these when you convert. If you qualify, just find out how. 877-646-5347. Okay, so noblegoldinvestments.com. Thank you for listening to my shameless plugs. All right, now let's get into this. So I'm really impressed with these new images that, just regular telescopes can pick up of 3i Atlas. We've looked at the Hubble, we've looked at the JUICE imaging here. So let's go back to this and take a look at it. This is from JUICE. And then this one's from Hubble. And then we've got the independent astronomers, which I think are doing a much better job picking up these incredible images of 3i Atlas. But that's not the only news, folks. We have a lot of news to look at here. But anyway, when we look at these images, this is what the current information is. Hubble has confirmed new photometric inconsistencies. The object is showing asymmetric brightness and irregular rotation. The coma structure appears to be layered or structured, not diffused. And the ESA, the European Space Agency, has noted non-standard morphology. This reinforces speculation that 3I Atlas is not a standard comet. When we go to the image from all-day astronomy, let's go to this one right here. So yeah, this image processed from long exposure stack. You've got two tails oriented in conflicting directions, which would be the tail and the anti-tail. The nucleus appears crisp, bright, and structurally defined. It is not behaving like a porous, icy body, more like a solid reflector. And this reignites debates over engineered versus natural interstellar objects. Then we look at the Brazilian image here. High zoom observatory shows expanding reflective coma. The jet streams appear symmetrical and patterned, which is pretty cool. Dust cloud radiates from central point instead of random dispersion. And unusual uniformity suggests possible magnetic or electrostatic processes. The observers call this the most unusual interstellar profile to date. When we go to this article right here, new NASA ESA images show 3I Atlas getting active ahead of its close encounter with Earth. The outgassing is increasing earlier than models predicted, and the heating is not sufficient to explain its activity. This suggests volatile pockets or unknown mechanisms. Some people consider the possibility this could be an actual spacecraft. Agencies are tracking potential trajectory deviations. We have increased brightness and mass shedding that's being reported, and unprecedented pre-encounter behavior for an interstellar body. It's the ESA right here. Let's go back to the ESA, the JUICE information. Now, the JUICE spacecraft, the ESA is confirming JUICE used NavCam to view 3I Atlas. The NavCam only used for objects requiring high positional accuracy, and this signals the object is important for trajectory modeling. The footage shows comet-like glow, but with geometric halo patterns. Halo. And the ESA is preparing more public releases. Let's see if we can get any more information on this. So this image was taken November 2nd. They're still waiting for more information, and we're still waiting for the information from the Mars orbiter. Yeah, like, don't get your hopes up, right? I mean, geez. The image from Utah, let's go to this real quick, from Dr. Sebastian Voltmer. Make sure to check out his X page. The anti-tail is sharply defined. This indicates that dust is aligned against solar radiation. That's interesting. This requires dense, heavier particles or non-standard forces. Non-standard forces. The object is brightening faster than predicted. Voltmer describes it as highly unusual, and the anti-tail is identical behavior with Oumuamua. Oumuamua's anomalies. Oumuamua. Remember that? The interstellar object that was first discovered in 2017, that artist rendition showed it looked like a flying space turd. They didn't really give us any good imaging of it, which they should have. But why didn't they? Why didn't they? I mean, and why haven't we seen the best images yet of 3I Atlas? What's going on? What don't they want us to see? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know, but it's very bizarre in my opinion. So that's what we have so far with the latest of 3I Atlas. Now, we've got a lot more news than just 3I Atlas, though. A lot more news. So check this out. You know, the mystery drones. And recently, I shared with you an article where there was a military base that was in Denmark, I think, the Voltmer Air Force Base, or the Voltmer military base. I think I'm saying that wrong. They spotted a plethora of these mystery drones. So they started shooting at these drones, live ammunition, and they missed. The drones disappeared. They got away again. Well, now it seems to be a regular occurrence because just recently, France opened fire on drones over a nuclear submarine. The military confirmed drones were unidentifiable and persistent. And anti-aircraft teams used live rounds, which is extremely rare. This is the second case that we've heard of, second or third, where they actually admitted shooting at these mystery drones, but they missed. Well, that's not going to give the public a lot of confidence about the military not even being able to shoot these drones down. These things show up at will. They disappear when they want to. They get the information that they need, and poof, they're gone. So what's up with that? Where are these things from? I mean, I've heard everything from Russia to China to defense contractors making these things up, but do we really know? I mean, we don't publicly. There might be some top secret files that we don't know about, but we do not have definitive answers about these drones. And it's so interesting when we look at the timing. We go back to Oumuamua, 2017, and at that time we observed this interstellar comet, and Professor Loeb says he thinks it's potentially an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Even the name Oumuamua means scout. So that hits the news. It makes mainstream for a while, and then later the news comes out and says, "Oh, Professor Loeb went out and searched for proof of it being a spacecraft, and they pulled these samples up from the ocean. And at first they thought it might mean it's some type of extraterrestrial craft, but then later they found out that it was just natural." I mean, I'm not convinced with any of this stuff. It seems like there's never a straight answer, not just with NASA, but with the news in general. Like, we want the truth. Tell us what's going on. That's why you want to watch Leak Project, because even if I get it wrong, I'm at least looking for the truth, and I'm willing to keep open all options that the data suggests. I'm not going to shut down something just because it doesn't sound right. We're going to follow the data. If we get it right, awesome. If we get it wrong, we'll admit it. I look back at my 2024 predictions, and about half of them came to fruition. Very detailed forecasts and predictions for 2025 and 2026. You can go back and see those on our Patreon page. We made 30 predictions. Actually, we made 33, but the first page was 30 predictions. You can look at the timestamp, very detailed. We got about half of them right. Somebody left a comment the other day. They said, "Rex, that's still an F." Well, I mean, thanks, buddy. You're right. That would still be an F if it was a test, but it was predictions and forecasts. And I think with as precise as those predictions were, with at least half of those hitting, that's pretty good percentage-wise. But we have these drones and these mystery drones that have been showing up substantially for the past few years. And the timing of 3I Atlas and Oumuamua and the war with Ukraine and Russia and President Trump, the incoming administration back, several years ago, and then 4 years off with the Biden administration. Then now he's back on. It just seems like somehow this could all be potentially connected. Whether or not this 3I Atlas is natural or artificial or some type of consciousness, it's really remarkable, especially when we look at the 16 hours and 16 minutes of its rotation, 1616. I'm going to do some more research into that. The timing and its flybys and its trajectories and the way it goes past the sun. As it goes past the sun, it changes just enough to where when it passes Jupiter, it's in the hill zone, which is the ideal location if it is a spacecraft to release probes that would not be stuck to the sun's gravitation. It would be linked to Jupiter's gravitational forces, which makes it much more interesting. But now we've got major drones, drone warfare, hybrid attacks, and France just launched an attack on these drones, and they missed. They didn't get a thing. They used anti-aircraft teams and live rounds and got nothing. Obviously, this is suggesting probing of nuclear deterrence and infrastructure. The French military is now on elevated alert. Just a few days ago, Zelensky, he flew to Dublin, and his plane was being tracked by what is referred to as military drones, but they don't say exactly what they look like or how they acted, except for they were like military drones. Listen to this. Military-grade drones tracked the escort aircraft. This is classified as a hybrid intimidation tactic, And the potential goal is psychological pressure or IRS mapping. Ireland has increased airport and VIP security protocols. We're talking Ireland now, folks. I mean, Ireland is far removed from the military industrial complex with Russia and China and the US. Well, now it sounds like they could be getting dragged into it. Now, here's what's interesting, though. Here's why I do not think that these drones were Russian drones. Because if you had 4 drones, military-style drones, tracking Zelensky in an airplane, why did they let it land? You think they just wanted to scare him? That doesn't make sense to me. Zelensky would be a high target for the Russian military. I mean, could you imagine if Russia was able to confirm that they took down Zelensky in the plane? Like, how would that be for the, how would that be? What would that do to people reading that article? Like, how would they respond to that? Oh, wow. Yeah, Russia just shot down a jet that had Zelensky in it with these drones. I mean, that would definitely give the edge to Russia, in my opinion, unless they just wanted to create some type of psychological program and they didn't want to take Zelensky out because they wanted to continue this war potentially. I don't know. Something's really fishy. Now, I'm just speculating here. I'm just throwing out ideas. But if those were Russian military drones tracking Zelensky in the air, why didn't they shoot it down? Why didn't they take it down? Why did they just observe it? Something's off there. So, and then we've got we've got 2 military bases in 2 different nations that have openly admitted the past several weeks trying to shoot down these drones, but these drones got away. Then they tracked Zelensky on his way to Ireland. Military grade drones in the news article, at least that's how they're explaining it. We've got also more unexplained drone sightings off 2 European Union coasts. Multiple swarms have been detected near offshore energy platforms. Countries are not named, but believed to include Norway and the United Kingdom, where this happened. And the flight patterns are consistent with reconnaissance. NATO maritime patrols increased immediately, and similar behavior was observed before the Nord Stream sabotage. Germany is also accelerating anti-drone measures amid airport incursions, Bloomberg reports. Over 150 drone incursions and incidents near German airports in 2024 and 2025. 150, folks. Major disruptions to air traffic, government deploying RF jammers and counter UAS turrets. Are they working? Doesn't sound like it. Estimated 10 times increase in hostile drone probes since the Ukraine war. Airports are considered soft targets for hybrid operations. Well, did you know that in September 11th, 2024, there were mystery drones spotted over an airport in China? That didn't make mainstream news for very long, for a very short amount of time. September 11th was the date that these drones were observed over an airport in China, so they had to shut down airspace. In other news, the World War III front line is pinpointed as NATO fortifies the East. You can read about that express. Analysts have identified the Suwalki Gap as the flashpoint. So the front line, essentially, the front line pinpointed for World War III, if it happens, is at the Suwalki Gap. That's the flashpoint. NATO is reinforcing Poland, Lithuania, and Romania. Russia is building a layered defense or defenses in Belarus and Kaliningrad, and both sides are preparing for escalation, not de-escalation. The terrain suggests rapid armor warfare scenario. Did you hear about in other news, did you hear about the U.S. Marine that was killed at Camp Pendleton? So listen to this. U.S. Marine killed at Camp Pendleton exercise, CBS. Incident during high-intensity urban warfare training. The Marines were undergoing accelerated pre-deployment cycles. This signifies rising operational tempo across U.S. forces, and the military calls the death training-related mishap. But was it? I don't know, because I saw a reward on Facebook for any information on the death of this U.S. Marine. Rest in peace. This often occurs. So when we look at these exercises that are taking place right now, these often occur during mobilization phases ahead of real world operations. In Ukraine right now, I don't know if you heard about Chernobyl, but the shelter that protects or blocks a lot of the radiation coming out of the Chernobyl plant after its meltdown, they put this huge protective barrier over Chernobyl. Well, these Russian drones blew a hole in the confinement structure several months ago. And the bomb damage that compromised the confinement structure, which is considered the new safe confinement structure, is not blocking the radiation from coming out now. So we have increased airborne radiation risks during storm winds. The IAEA warns of long-term contamination integrity issues, and the repairs have been delayed due to security concerns. Oh, isn't that wonderful? So the potential for regional contamination is even higher if the infrastructure collapses, and it's basically broken right now. It's got a big hole in it. So doesn't that make you feel amazing? Not only are we having problems with the Chernobyl shelter, big hole in it, blown into it, but also the Zaporizhzhia, or how do you pronounce this? Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant lost power overnight. Read about it, Reuters. And that's in Ukraine as well. So we've got problems with Chernobyl, now another nuclear plant. This has happened several times. Losing power at a nuclear plant is not good. The diesel generators that are backup power for these power plants can only last so long. So we have a loss of external power. The cooling systems go offline. The emergency diesel generators are activated. And this is the 8th major power loss event since 2022 at this nuclear power plant. This does reinforce fears of international or accidental nuclear disasters, and the IAEA calls the situation untenable. You don't say. But guess what? The U.S. wants to build 1,000 micronuclear reactors and bury them a mile underground to power data centers so that they can spy on you more. Doesn't that make you feel good? Doesn't that make you feel safe? Doesn't that just give you that warm and fuzzy feeling that they want to build nuclear power? They want to build micro reactors, bury them a mile underground so that they can power data centers to spy on you and your family. Yeah, you got to love it, right? But in other news, this is from Kyiv Independent. This is really like eye-opening to me. According to the Kyiv Independent, the Russia troop losses reach 1,179,790 casualties. This includes those that have been killed or severely wounded, indicating the Kremlin is relying heavily on conscripts. And this level is reaching World War II levels. That is mind-boggling. Ukraine is compensating with mass drone offenses, and the war is evolving into century-defining conflict of exhaustion. Over 1 million people on the Russian side. Now, whether or not this is accurate, I can't confirm that. This is just according to the Kyiv Independent. But that really puts things into perspective. 1 million people. And then imagine all the families that have been affected as well on both sides. I read reports that there were 400,000 plus in Ukraine. In other news, U.S. security strategy aligns with Russia's vision, according to BBC. Moscow claims the new U.S. doctrine mirrors Russian security concerns, possible strategic misinterpretation or propaganda. This could signal softening U.S. stance or tactical repositioning, and this raises alarm among European partners. Now, whether or not this is true or, like it says here, some type of propaganda piece, it's definitely going to cause a response. And there was originally a 28-step process that the U.S. was presenting to Russia to stop the war in Ukraine. And then Ukraine came back with a 19-piece or a 19-step treaty plan. So far, nothing. Actually, when they were passing these treaties back and forth and talking about having a truce, that's when it seemed like the military operations ramped up. And as this is going on, Russian tourists have been diverted from Venezuela to Cuba because of the military buildup in the Caribbean. And this is Financial Times. Venezuela, obviously expecting possible U.S. strikes. As President Trump just said recently, there could be ground strikes very soon. President Trump had a conversation with Maduro over the phone. Maduro's not leaving. He has no plans to leave, at least what we're being told. And now Russia's saying, okay, get our tourists out of there, get to Cuba. Cuba is acting as an alternative safe hub. And this is obviously suggesting Moscow is anticipating escalation in Venezuela, with the U.S. being parked next door. In other news, Zelensky has warned about U.S. high-speed peace push. Wall Street Journal. Europe fears rushed peace deal undermining Ukraine. Possible territorial concessions are forced. Growing divide between the U.S. and Europe on endgame. This signals NATO unity cracks beneath the surface. So when I see all this going on in Europe, and I read all this news about, Germany wanting to spearhead NATO and be the main force to push NATO for the next generation. U.S. pulls out a lot of its troops. We're putting a lot of our people down towards the Caribbean and Venezuela. And then we've got major tensions with Japan and China about the remarks Japan's prime minister made about Taiwan. China's even going to the United Nations asking for help. I can see some big changes and some big shifts here. But we've got, in other news, this is at United 24. Listen to this. 653 drones and 51 missiles were launched overnight. This is the largest, and this is United 24 News, largest combined strike of the war. Ukraine intercepted 585 of the drones and 30 missiles, and showing how Ukraine's integrated air defenses have improved. Russia is testing saturation tactics for future offenses. 653 drones in one night, 51 missiles one night. Then in other news, Ukraine hit the Ryazan oil refinery, according to the Kyiv Independent. The strike penetrated hundreds of miles into Russian territory, disrupted regional fuel production, and demonstrates Ukraine's long-range precision strike capabilities. Ukraine also, according to Reuters, hit a chemical plant in southern Russia. A massive explosion reported, potential environmental fallout. Oh, really? You don't say? And signals Ukraine willingness to target infrastructure deep in Russia, like chemical plants. See, this is the problem with war. Like when you get into nuclear and chemical weapons, the long-term effects can far outweigh a short-term, like short-term solutions, long-term problems. In other news, Berlin has deployed fighters to Poland after drone incursions, Reuters. Germany positions jets near Polish border. Joint NATO quick reaction alert system activated, indicating alliance preparing for rapid drone intercept operations. And then we have U.S. nuclear submarines that could dock in Australia, according to The Guardian, even though it is off limits, they say. This would be the first time nuclear-armed U.S. vessels docked there. This violates decades-old national policy, and it indicates increased Indo-Pacific nuclear posturing China is expected to respond sharply. See, here's the thing. Australia has openly admitted they do not have the military to fight a force like China or the CCP if needed. And China and the CCP has been very bold with their submarines and their aircraft carrier and their jets and their military in like circling Australia. It's like, I wonder what's going on behind the scenes. I wonder if we go back a few years, if there were some agreements made with Australia and the CCP, I'm just wondering and speculating here, that have since dwindled. And so the CCP says, "Oh, really? You're gonna back off on what we talked about? You're not gonna follow the game plan that we had initially put together? Well, we're gonna show you." Something's going on there. Like, China does not want the US to get involved with Australia, nor, like, think about this. The Panama Canal is very close to Venezuela. And having a huge military force in that region could definitely act as a deflector for other nations. So that could be one of the reasons. I don't think it's just Venezuela. I think there's more to the story here, but we're talking speculation here, so just throwing that out there as an idea. The United States is actually ordering, according to Defense Post, $200 million worth of anti-drone shells. Northrop Grumman contracted for counter-UAS ammunition. This represents the urgent procurement typical of wartime supply needs, and the U.S. is preparing for drone-saturated battlefields. Yeah, but what about the drones that we can't shoot down? Is $200 million in anti-drone shells going to do any good against mystery drones that can appear and disappear and show up at 1,000 feet and then 10,000 feet in a matter of seconds, turn off other drones that are tracking them? Just, it seems like they can do pretty much anything they want to and still get away. At least that's what the news is presenting. So I don't know if they're just doing that to freak people out, because I don't think so necessarily, because if that was the case, you're also taking away the military's abilities in the eyes of the public. Like, confidence is going to be very low the more you have news pieces come out saying that these drones are flying over military bases, the military shoots at them, and they get away. There's probably been a lot more cases that we haven't been told about. I wouldn't be surprised. But China and Russia had a strategic meeting recently on Japan. This is really interesting. So China-Russia axis plus Asia-Pacific tensions. China-Russia strategic meeting yields strong consensus on Japan. Read all about it, MFA. The joint statement explicitly named Japan, discussing security, military alignment, and U.S. posture, hard evidence of deeper Sino-Russian military integration. So it sounds like Russia is joining forces in a sense, or maybe not joining forces, but aligning with China against Japan. And if China is to invade Taiwan, which they just held urban warfare drills for a Taipei invasion, South China, read all about it, SCMP News. So PLA holds urban warfare drills for Taipei invasion. This training included tunnel clearing, block by block combat, drone swarms, simulating a full-scale assault on the Taiwan capital. China is shifting from signaling to direct preparation. And in other news that's connected, 90 plus Chinese ships have been active in and around Taiwan. You can read about this, Ian Ellis on X. This exceeds the December 2024 show of force deployment. This includes destroyers, frigates, intelligence vessels, and this is designed to overwhelm regional ISR systems. Taiwan and Japan have also increased air patrols in response. Then we have news that a Chinese jet locks fire control radar on a Japanese aircraft, CNN. The fire control lock is a pre-missile targeting system Japan files formal protest. Extremely high risk escalation, they say, because one miscalculation could trigger defense response, which could lead to war. Then we have China firing flares at the Philippine aircraft. Read all about it, ABC News. Flares are normally used to deter missiles fired close enough to be interpreted as harassment. And the Philippines have invoked treaty obligations with the United States. Then in Hong Kong has made arrests over news being reported on the skyscrapers that massive fire took place recently. So a man was jailed for an online comment deemed incitement. They're arresting people in Hong Kong for posting news about these fires. That's a bit alarming. And this definitely shows a tightening censorship and erosion of civil liberties. Beijing's digital control extends into all crisis narratives. Germany has also rejected parts of the U.S. security strategy, indicating growing fractures with NATO. Germany pushing for independent European defense policy, and the U.S.-EU strategic alignment is weakening. We have a major influx in bankruptcies with small businesses in the U.S. right now. You can read about this, Kobesi on X. The rates right now with small business bankruptcies are resembling 2008 levels. High interest rates, inflation, and consumer slowdown are all culprits. The sectors hit hardest: retail, hospitality, and construction. And these are signaling early stages of recession even before official admission. In the home sellers market, you can also read about this at Kobesi on X. More listings have been pulled nationwide, like people that are selling their houses, they're taking the listings down. First of all, because the market sucks right now. The real estate markets suck right now in most places. Mortgage affordability is at a 40-year low. We have price stagnation with rising foreclosures. The housing market is now gridlocked. We're looking at 2008 levels. Bankruptcies recently hit 15-year highs, Economic Times. Outpacing pandemic and 2008 levels, corporate filings are accelerating fastest. Debt rollover costs are crushing businesses. National recession indicators flashing red. 70 plus banks have been hit by a marquee ransomware breach, Tech Radar. This is affecting credit unions, regional banks. Personal data, social security numbers, financial records have been exposed. System-wide cybersecurity weakness has been revealed. Regulatory investigation is underway. In Colorado's largest home manufacturing plant shut down, Denver Post. This is a critical blow to affordable housing supplies. The layoffs ripple across construction and transport, indicator of a deeper stress in the housing sector. Then in other news, an ex-DEA agent was charged in cartel laundering. New York Times accepted cash to disguise drug proceeds, shows severe internal corruption, and the Department of Justice is increasing audits of federal law enforcement. Then in other news, Mexico freezes Miss Universe co-owner accounts, ABC, linked to organized crime investigations, highlighting the cartel infiltration into legitimate global businesses. Then when we get to the environment, check this out. 520 chemicals were found in English soil. Guardian News. This includes banned pharmaceuticals and pesticides. This indicates long-term environmental accumulation. Risk to agriculture and groundwater is high. 520 chemicals. There's not that many companies that make these chemicals, folks. And then you heard recently about the EPA approving a new pesticide with forever chemicals in the pesticide. Well, the EPA is denying that. The EPA denies approving PFAS pesticides. You can read about it, farm and dairy. Documents do indicate PFAS entered pesticide supply chain. The EPA claims administrative error or external approval. This raises accountability questions. Now, I read that article, and the chemical, like the compounds put in these pesticides, when they break down, they can break down into forever chemicals, but they're not originally forever chemicals. So they're using that as a reason to not be a I got to read this to you because this just blows my mind. Like this lights me up. With as much as Maha, Make America Healthy Again, with as much as RFK Jr. and Make America Healthy Initiative has done, Make America Healthy Again, with as much good that we've seen so far, in my opinion, it's like 2 steps forward, 10 steps backwards. If this, this just blows my mind. Listen to this. Farm and dairy. EPA says it did not approve pesticides with PFAS. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency recently approved 2 new pesticide ingredients that have sparked debate over whether they contain forever chemicals. The federal agency registered the active ingredient cyclobutyfluorum November 5th for nematicide fungicide use on turf, ornamentals, and romaine lettuce, as well as cotton and soybean seed. Cyclobutyfluorum can be used in rotation with other nematicides to reduce resistance in crops and turf, according to the EPA. The agency also approved 10 new products on November 20th containing the active ingredient isocyclosuram, a broad-spectrum contact insecticide that can be used on agricultural crops, turf, and ornamentals, as well as indoor and outdoor uses for commercial, industrial, and domestic sites. This new active ingredient will give farmers an additional tool to help manage crops and grow more food for our country, the EPA said in a press release. According to the EPA, isocyclosuram pesticides will target pests that have caused significant damage to crops and financial losses to farmers over the years. Excuse me. Including the tarnished plant bug in cotton, Colorado potato beetle, and the diamondback moth for brassica vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, etc. Isocyclosuram also has benefits for managing indoor pests like cockroaches, termites, and bedbugs, the EPA said. Both cyclobutyfluorum and isocyclosuram were previously reviewed by the agency through various studies evaluating impacts on animals, plants, and humans. The studies identified no human health risks when the pesticides are used, according to their labels. Really? Well, listen to this. Environmental activists and organizations, as well as several media outlets, raised the alarm, arguing that the ingredients contain forever chemicals, like PFAS. PFAS are said to exist forever as they contain toxic chemicals that break down slowly, remaining indefinitely in the environment and accumulating in the human body, leading to negative health impacts. According to the Center for Biological Diversity, cyclobutyfluoram, how the hell do you say that? Cyclobutyfluoram breaks down into the smaller forever chemical trifluoroacetic acid. They make these words so freaking ridiculously long that you don't even want to say it. It's like, you got to study the damn word for 10 minutes just to say it right. Well, if they can't say it properly, they won't say it at all. So let's just make up some 20 pardon my language. Just blows my mind that they put this crap in the food and then they say it's okay. And then they say they're there to protect you. We're here to protect you. If we say it's okay, it's okay. Yeah, I'm not convinced. So according to the Center for Biological Diversity, cyclobutyrylfluorum breaks down into the smaller forever chemical trifluoroacetic acid. The group adds that isocycloseram is classified as moderately persistent to persistent, meaning it slowly breaks down over time, and it can also transform into 40 smaller PFAS chemicals, which were found to break down over an even longer period of time. The wildlife nonprofit organization says the ingredient's approval puts the nation's children at risk. To approve more PFAS pesticides amid the growing awareness of the serious long-term dangers from these forever chemicals is absurdly short-sighted, said Nathan Donnelly, Environmental Health Science Director at the Center for Biological Diversity. But according to the EPA, classifying cyclobutyrylfluoram and isocycloseram as PFAS is misinformation. The recent false claims that EPA approved a forever chemical represents a fundamental misunderstanding of chemistry and toxicology. Okay, well, why don't you spray that stuff all over the vegetables and fruits that you eat and all the fruits and vegetables that you want to give your family, okay? Why don't you go ahead and do that? Because it's so safe in your eyes. Yeah, I don't think so. And actually, I don't even think you should, as much as I disagree with this, to say that you should feed that to your friends and family is completely wrong as well. No matter how much I don't like you, I do not want you to put poisonous stuff on the food and then feed it to yourself or your family. Why are they doing this? For money? I mean, how much money is your health worth? You don't think you have friends and family that are going to eat this stuff? Is it worth it to you? It blows me away that companies get away with this stuff. And then they make fun or mock people that don't want toxic chemicals on their food or their family's food. Makes a lot of sense, right? Welcome to Earth, folks. Whoever's running this place definitely does not have our best interests at heart. At least it seems when you read stuff like this. Because if we really had people in positions of power that could make decisions about what to put in our food supply, I don't think there's any way in hell they would allow anything close to this on the foods. So what if the farmers can grow more crops because they put chemicals on their foods and they require less people working there? Hire some more people, pay them better, give them better working conditions. I mean, have you seen the videos or the images where people are spraying pesticides on corn wearing full hazmat suits? Does that not make you question the reality of the situation? This kind of stuff just blows me away. Now, these are my opinions. These are my opinions. But after reading articles about how 520 chemicals have been found in English soil, and then the EPA approves new pesticides that have chemicals in them that break down slowly and can potentially break down into forever chemicals, Houston, we have a problem. And then listen to this. In other news, USA Today. Speaking of PFAS chemicals, 49.5 million Americans have PFAS in the drinking water. 1 in 7 Americans exposed. What is PFAS linked to? There's a whole book on problems that PFAS is linked to and health concerns. So that's in the US. 49.5 million Americans have PFAS in their drinking water. USA Today. Well, what about France? Listen to this. France 24 News. 90% of French tap water is PFAS positive. European PFAS crisis mirrors the US. Oh, you don't say? It sounds like it's even higher. 90%. The government is planning emergency filtration upgrades. Oh, good. That's so nice of you. Consumer items that contain toxic chemicals. The Independent. Food packaging. Cosmetics clothing, which can cause these chemicals to accumulate in the bloodstream, and it's hard to regulate due to global manufacturing. How about all the foods that are like, oh, these are organic food, but we sprayed bisphenol A in the container, but the food's organic. Kristen met somebody the other day that is an organic farmer, and he said that the stuff that they sprayed on the organic crops were worse than the non-organic crops. It makes me think of like chicken. Oh, they're free-range chickens. Do you know what free-range chicken, like the official definition of that is? The legal binding definition? Let me read this to you real quick. You might have known this. What is the legal definition of free-range chicken? I think it's like an hour a day. Legally, the USDA defines free-range chicken as poultry with continuous free access to the outdoors. But this is a loose standard requiring only a small door to an outside area with no minimum space or quality requirements for that space, allowing for potentially cramped conditions. More meaningful definitions come from third-party certifications like Certified Humane, which mandates significant outdoor time, like 6+ hours, specific space, 2 square feet minimum, and better living conditions, while pasture raised offers even greater space and outdoor access. Marketing can be the devil. Like, you want to talk about more modern sorcery? That's modern marketing. The way that people can be tricked based upon word salads and images and neurolinguistic programming. It's very easy, in my opinion, to manipulate entire civilizations with extremely precise marketing techniques. It can be used for good too. I mean, it can be used for just as good as it can for bad, but it seems like these giant corporations are constantly looking for ways to make something as cheap as they can so they can give their stockholders as much money as they can make. And then the people at the very top are making exuberant amounts of money, while oftentimes the products they're putting out to the public have a lot of problems. A lot of problems. Free range, huh? Yeah, free range. Unbelievable. In other news, in environmental news, this is kind of cool, actually. An ancient lake has reemerged in Death Valley. You can read about that in Newsweek. Unusual hydrological event signals extreme climate swings, and this could revive dormant ecosystems. Death Valley is now Lake Valley. If you have an Android phone and that Android phone was given to you by a company or corporation, Google is now sharing text messages with employers. You can read about this Forbes. So bring your own device. Now fully exposed, employers can legally request message logs. And this is a major privacy shift. This might have something to do with the IDF banning Android phones. Recently, I read an article that iPhones are now mandatory, and the IDF has banned Android phones. You can read about this Forbes. And they say it's because of security vulnerabilities exploited in Android devices. Israel is forcing uniform encryption standards, and Android is considered too easily compromised. Now, if you thought that was a privacy concern, how about 6G brain phone interface emerging? 6G is aimed, and it's the 6th generation of communications where they use terahertz waves instead of megahertz or gigahertz, megahertz. Gigahertz is 5G, billions of cycles per second. And then 4G was using megahertz, millions of cycles per second. 3G was slower than that. So you got 4G megahertz range, 5G gigahertz range. You know, your microphone or your microwave is right around 2.4 gigahertz. They have phones that emit 2.4 gigahertz. They have routers that emit 2.4 gigahertz. The way a microwave works, and that I don't think that's the exact, let me look this up real quick. Exact frequency of microwave oven. Most home microwaves operate at a frequency of 2.45 gigahertz, a frequency chosen because it efficiently heats water and falls within the unlicensed industrial, scientific, and medical band, allowing for widespread use. 2.45 gigahertz is standard. Some industrial units use 915 megahertz, and the actual frequency can jitter slightly from 2.44 gigahertz to 2.48 gigahertz, rather than being perfectly monochromatic, says Reddit. Now, oh shoot, hold on a second. I'll be right back. My computer's about ready to, I gotta plug it in. Bueller, must plug in computer. All right. Plug it in. Plug it in. Here we go. So anyway, microwaves are using around 2.45 gigahertz. The way a microwave works is it heats up the water molecules, and that's what heats up the food. And then you find out that phones and routers are using 2.4 gigahertz. Well, you know your body's mainly made up of water, right? I'm just saying. So anyway, 6G. 6G, sixth generation, is using terahertz instead of gigahertz. And 6G is aiming for neural input integration. This could allow thought-to-device communications. That means you think it, your phone picks it up, and then it does what you tell it to do in your mind, basically. Well, what happens when they have cloud servers that store everything you've ever thought? That sounds interesting. And this certainly raises massive privacy concerns. Be careful what you think. They can read your mind. That's a song by, that's a line in a song by Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails, that came out like around 2008, 2009. Their album G, capital G. Remember that song? I pushed the button and elected him to office. I pushed the button and they dropped the bomb. Those are lines in the song by Trent Reznor. Capital G. I traded in my God for this one. He signs his name, capital G. That's some more lines in the song. What is the name of that song? Trent Reznor, capital G. Lyrics. 9 Inch Nails, capital G. Yeah. Here, the very first verse. I pushed a button and elected him to office, and he pushed a button and it dropped a bomb. You pushed a button and could watch it on the television. Those MFers didn't last too long. Ha ha. I'm sick of hearing about haves and have-nots. Have some personal accountability. Anyway, that's just the first few lines of the song. Trent Reznor is definitely, I mean, man, he is a hell of a musician. He's a trip. He's definitely a trip. But anyway, so 6G brain phone interface. Read all about it. Medium. There's a good article on Medium about it. Did you hear about this one? This is an interesting article. Google AI deletes user hard drives. Futurism. So this guy is using this AI program, and then the AI program literally deletes his hard drive. And then it's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm so sorry that I just deleted your hard drive on your computer. Yeah. And that's futurism. You can read about it, futurism. And then another article that came out on futurism, researchers invent dangerous AI incantations. Magical sounding prompts force models into dangerous states. And this was not released due to misuse risk. Also showing fragility of LLM safety barriers. Then at Gadgets Now, another news source. And Anthropic scientist warns of 2030 deadline, saying that super intelligent AI will require global governance, and suggesting the world must decide AI limits within 5 years. This is a stark warning from the top researcher. Yeah, read all about it. So let's talk about some good news, though. Let's talk about some good news for a minute. So, and remember, this is all live action role play for entertainment purposes only. Science breakthroughs. This is fascinating. This is from SciTech Daily. Metal nanodots obliterate cancer cells. Targeted treatment. Minimal damage to healthy tissue. Potential revolution in oncology. Then, here's some more good news. Task and purpose. Medal of Honor stipend increased to $67,500 annually. This is a significant upgrade to veteran support. And thank you to all of you veterans out there that have served in the military. I have a lot of friends and family that have served in the military. Amazing people. Most of them would give you the shoes off their feet if you needed them. And it's interesting to talk to people that have fought in previous wars about like where their mind is now. I can get into that in a whole other podcast. It's very personal for a lot of people, but it affects everybody. It affects everybody, and it's very hard on a lot of people. When they get back, they're like, wow, what was I doing over there? Why was I over there? Who was it at the top that decided to create this battle zone so that I had to go over there and fight? And then, it's like, I've talked to people before they've gone into combat, and I've seen their Facebook posts and such, and they get, it's like a psychological. First, it's a psychological war. And I was thinking about like a potential for global conflict. Like we look back at World War II, World War I, and most wars, the people have to be convinced to go to war first. The overall population has to be convinced. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get people to sign up. Sure, you can have, a mandatory, what do they call that? Mandatory, dang it. The draft, like a mandatory draft. But usually the powers that be do a good enough job, those that love you so much, the dungeon masters, they convince people that they need to go to war. If they can convince you and your family and your friends that we need to go to war, they have a much better opportunity of getting people to sign up and profiting off of destruction. So how difficult would it be for the powers that be now to convince populations to go to another, to enter the battle zone? Like if we do have a World War III scenario, with all of the information that's available and with all of the differing opinions and ideas of people today, they're going to have to use a different strategy to get enough people to back it up. And I still think that they can, and they potentially will, but it's going to be through memes, the meme, how they call them memes news, alternative news. The mainstream news has a lot less power over people's minds than it used to. It still does, and it always will. But there's so many different avenues now to get information that, like, that's why I look at as many sources as I can. And, I follow my instincts, and I get things wrong. I get a lot of things right, but I'm not placating to one specific audience. And I think that we should put ourselves in other people's shoes before we completely, judge them or have. Anyway, so I have a dream, but we'll talk about that later. Let's get back into some more good news. More good news. Researchers dug 0.6 miles into the ground, and they discovered rocks that act as natural power plants. Piezoelectric properties found underground. This could be tapped as micro energy sources. This also opens up new renewable energy frontiers. It makes me think about the satellite imaging that was shared where it showed what appeared to be structures underneath the Great Pyramids of Giza. And I think that they were about 2,200 feet below the surface, according to the seismic data from these satellites. So that's not quite half a mile. That's like 0.38 to 0.4 miles below. And now we're reading articles that are saying that researchers have actually discovered rocks that act as power plants, basically, about 0.6 miles underground. I think that could actually add more validity to the research that was done with the satellite data showing potentially underground objects in Egypt. I think that's really cool. And I think we should keep up on that, because if we can use rocks as natural power plants, why the hell do we need micro nuclear reactors or nuclear reactors? Well, I mean, I don't know how much power these things can produce, but if you can produce a megawatt in something the size of a small trailer, you probably wouldn't be able to do that with natural rocks. So I can see why they're doing it. I don't agree with it, but I can see why they're doing it. In other news, and this is from Union Rail, this is pretty cool. The US has created a cement battery that has 10 times the life of lithium cement. I love that. And this could revolutionize energy storage. But what happens when the US discovers $1.5 trillion worth of lithium under a US volcano? You can read about this, earth.com. The largest known lithium reserve discovered. This has massive geopolitical implications, and this could shift global energy dominance to the US. $1.5 trillion lithium deposit under a US dormant volcano. I think it's in Nevada. I'll have to double check on that. Was it Nevada? Yeah. It's an ancient volcanic crater on the Nevada-Oregon border, an enormous deposit of lithium-rich clay. About a $1.5 trillion worth, they say. In other good news, a dog, which was missing for 5 years, was recently found 2,289 miles away. You can read about it, People magazine. The unfortunate thing is it was found tied to a fence. There's no explanation for its cross-country movement and viral human interest mystery. Yeah, I mean, but thank goodness that that dog is now back with its owner or back with its human friends, and they're able to unite. I think that's good news. 5 years, 2,200 miles away. Wow. And have you ever, look, truck drivers, you got a hard job. Like, major respect for you. I have major respect for truck drivers, and it's a lot of work, and being on the road around a bunch of crazy drivers, it's tough. I get it. But sometimes you got those truckers out there that could care less about anybody else. So I thought this article was kind of funny, and this is from CDL Life. CDL Life. A tanker driver was arrested for not using turnouts. Was he arrested, or was he just given a ticket? But anyway, this tanker's driving at like 20 miles an hour. He's 20 miles an hour, doesn't care. He probably knew that there were 15 cars behind him, and he was like, I'm just going to drive extra slow because of all you guys behind me, because I've had a bad day. Well, anyway, this guy passed 2 different turnarounds without pulling over to let people drive him. And a cop saw him, and he's like, wait a second, you're getting a ticket. It says here he was arrested, but I'm not. Was he arrested? Let me double check on this. CDL Life. Driver ticketed. Yeah, here we go. CDLLife.com. Tanker driver nabbed for failing to use turnouts at 20 miles per hour with 15 vehicles stuck behind, CHP says. The California Highway Patrol is reminding the trucking community about rules requiring the use of turnouts after a recent incident involved a tanker truck in the San Gorgonio Pass. Troopers recently made an enforcement stop on a tanker truck for failure to use a turnout on State Route 371 within our mountain communities. The CHP said that the tanker truck driver was traveling at speeds of 20 miles an hour and failed to use two large marked paved turnouts with 15 vehicles following behind. Looks like he just got a ticket here. But there's the ticket. Yeah, man, come on. Anyway, so that's the news we have for today. And I hope your day, the rest of your day goes fantastic. Thank you for listening to my rant here at Leak Project. If you do me a huge favor, if you would make sure that you've got the bell rung for all notifications here on YouTube. And if you'd also subscribe to us on Rumble and Patreon, that would be amazing. And check out our sponsor. You'll thank me later on that. Definitely thank me later on that. And have a beautiful day, everybody. Thank you so much. Be the change you want to see.